Welcome to our deep dive, everyone. This time we're tackling the story of money. It's a long one, believe me, from bartering chickens to, well, Bitcoin.
Yeah, it really reflects how much we've changed, doesn't it?
Hmm.
The ways we exchange value, like a mirror to our own progress almost. Every step of the way, you see shifts in human needs, tech, even our sense of trust.
It's so true. Money is one of those things you just use every day. But when you stop and think, whoa, the whole idea is wild.
It really is. At its heart, money is just. An idea we all share. Anything we decide has value that we'll trade for other stuff we want. But how we've shown that value, that's changed like crazy over time.
So let's rewind way back. Before dollars, before coins even, what was trading like in the super early days? Everyone just carrying their stuff around, making deals.
Pretty much.
Oh,
Imagine you get to directly swap one thing for another. Barter system, we call it. The OG marketplace. Extra wheat? Maybe your neighbor's got firewood to trade.
sounds simple enough, but I bet it got complicated fast.
You bet. Biggest problem. Finding the right match. Economists even have a name for it. Double coincidence of wants. Like, say you're a baker, right? Shelves are full of bread, but you need new shoes. Gotta find a cobbler who's craving carbs.
Uh-huh, good luck with that. Makes sense why folks needed a better system. So how'd we get from that to, well, actual money?
Like they say, necessity breeds invention. People started using things with value that everyone agreed on. Commodity money, that was a game changer.
Okay, examples. What kind of things were valuable enough to become money?
Well, early farmers, they used livestock a lot. Think paying for a new plow with goats.
Uh-huh, a literal cash cow.
Exactly. And grain, that was like gold back then. Taxes, clothes, even weddings, paid for with sacks of grain.
But I'm still picturing a lot of bartering happening, even with these early forms of money, right?
You're picking up on it fast. Commodities were a good step, but still clunky. A herd of cows to the market, not exactly convenient. And a bushel of wheat doesn't fit in your pocket, right?
True. People needed something more. Standardized? Portable. Cue the coins.
This is where it gets interesting.
For that, we got to go back to Lydia in modern-day Turkey. Around 600 BCE, they were the ones first to make standardized coins from precious metals, like gold and silver.
So these coins were like little treasures you carried around, each one representing a certain amount of value.
Bingo! It's crazy how that one change revolutionized trade. No more hauling grain sacks. No more hoping the blacksmith needs your pottery.
Way more efficient, for sure.
Absolutely. And it caught on fast. Greeks, Romans, they all started using coins. It helped their economies grow, made things more stable. Imagine paying soldiers, collecting taxes, all that's easier when you've got coins. What do you think those folks would say about our money today? Plastic cards, tapping phones, money that's just digital.
It really makes you think, money isn't really about the thing itself, is it? It's about the trust behind it. We all agree it has value and that idea. Well, that's kept evolving right alongside our tech. Speaking of which, paper money. Coins were great, but they had their downsides too. You know it. And paper money, it's older than you might think. First recorded use, China, 7th century, Tang Dynasty.
Wow, China was ahead of the curve, as usual.
For sure. But it really took off during the Song Dynasty, a few centuries later. They were short on copper, so paper money kind of became a necessity.
Born out of a shortage, interesting. But why'd people trust these pieces of paper? They weren't gold, after all.
Good question. It boils down to trust, really. Early paper money usually had a promise attached from the government, like you could trade it for gold or silver anytime. It still represented something real.
Okay, that makes sense. But
Right.
governments can just print more paper money, right? What's stopping them from going overboard?
Now you're onto something. That's the tricky part with fiat money. That's what we call money that's not directly backed by a commodity. Print too much, and its value drops. That's inflation.
Inflation, that doesn't sound good. What does it mean for regular people?
Basically, prices go up, your money buys less stuff, your savings lose value, even basic things get harder to afford. It can get bad, like in Venezuela or Zimbabwe. People need piles of cash just for groceries.
Yikes. So finding the right balance is key. How'd governments try to keep things stable, avoid those disasters?
That's where the gold standard comes in, and central banking. Two big ideas to bring some order to money matters. Before we jump into those, though, what struck you so far about this money journey?
Honestly, it's like every step along the way, people were trying to solve a problem. From bartering headaches to the hassle of carrying coins, it's constant innovation, making trade easier, making life better.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Human ingenuity at its finest. Right. But as you said, new solutions often bring new challenges, and that's where we'll pick up next time.
Can't wait. Gold standard, central banks. This is getting good.
Buckle up. It's about to get wilder as we move into modern times.
So last time we left off with paper money and that whole inflation thing. How did governments try to keep prices from going crazy, keep things, stable?
Well, in the 1800s, the gold standard became pretty popular. Basically, they wanted to tie paper money to something real, something everyone agreed was valuable. Gold.
The gold standard, yeah. I hear that a lot, but honestly, I don't really get how it worked. Explain it like I'm 5, maybe.
Sure. Think of it this way. Every dollar, every unit of currency was directly linked to a certain amount of gold. So you could go to a bank, trade your paper money for actual gold coins, or even bars if you had a lot.
Like a golden guarantee backing up your cash. That must have made people feel more secure, right?
Exactly. It made things feel more stable and help control inflation. Governments couldn't just print money all willy-nilly. They had to have enough gold to back it up. But managing all this, with gold involved, well, that's where central banks came in.
Central banks, those sound pretty important. I remember you sent me that article about the history of central banking. They go way back, don't they?
They do. It's a long story and kind of tied to how money itself changed. Early examples, you've got the Bank of England, started in 1694. Later on, in the U.S., there's the Federal Reserve, early 1900s.
So what exactly do central banks do? I mean, what's their role in all of this?
Think of them like guardians of a country's money system. They've got tools to keep things running smoothly, regulating how much money's out there, setting interest rates. They even act like a safety net for banks in trouble, a lender of last resort.
The economic superheroes, huh? Swooping in when things go bad.
Not always heroes, haha, but definitely important. But even the gold standard, it wasn't perfect. It had limits.
Really? I thought gold was like the ultimate symbol of stability. What could go wrong with a system tied to gold?
Well, as economies got more complicated, more connected, tying everything to gold started to feel restrictive. Governments needed more flexibility to deal with changes, manage their currencies.
So being tied to a limited resource like gold, it eventually caused problems.
Yeah, basically. During the 20th century, most countries moved away from the gold standard. That brought us to the age of fiat money, what most of the world uses today.
Hold on, fiat money sounds like a car. What is that exactly?
Yeah, the name's a bit strange. Fiat money isn't backed by gold or anything physical. It gets its value from, well, the government, basically. They say it has value, and people trust the system enough to go along with it.
So we're all just agreeing that this paper, these numbers on a screen, are worth something because the government says so. Sounds risky. What if people lose faith in the government or its currency?
You got it. That's the risk with fiat money. If people stop trusting the system, things can fall apart. We've seen it happen. Hyperinflation, currency collapses, often because of politics or bad economic decisions.
That's kind of scary. It makes you realize how delicate this all is. But fiat money's here to stay, it seems. Are there any ways to prevent those worst-case scenarios?
Well, that's where central banks come back in. They play a huge role in managing fiat currencies, setting those interest rates, controlling how much money's out there, trying to keep inflation under control, like conductors, keeping the whole economic orchestra in tune.
Sounds tricky. But what about all this digital currency stuff? Blockchain. Is that going to change everything, disrupt this whole fiat money system?
It's definitely a force to be reckoned with. Remember how we talked about China early with the paper money? Well, now they're leading the way with digital currencies. But this is different, not just replacing metal with paper. It's rethinking the whole idea of money.
Okay, this is where I get lost. Blockchain, cryptocurrencies. I know they're a big deal, but it's all kind of confusing. Can you give me this simple version?
Imagine a digital ledger, a huge spreadsheet, but it's shared across tons of computers, a whole network. Every transaction is on this ledger, and everyone on the network has a copy. Super transparent.
Wait, so everyone can see every transaction. Isn't that a little creepy?
Not really. It's encrypted, anonymous, to protect privacy. But the point is, it's secure and transparent. No single person controls it. Nobody can mess with the records. That's the power of blockchain.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. But how does this become money? Are we going to be paying for groceries with lines of code soon?
We might be closer than you think. Bitcoin. That was the first one to use blockchain. Created in 2009 by this mysterious person, Satoshi Nakamoto. We still don't know who they are, for sure. It lets you send money directly, person to person. No bank involved.
Whoa, no banks. That changes everything.
It does. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, they're all about being decentralized, transparent, and there's a limited supply. It's a direct challenge to the old ways, to the banks and governments that have always controlled money.
I can see why people are excited, but also kind of scared. This could change everything about how we use money, but
Yeah.
if no one's in control, how do we know what these digital currencies are even worth?
That's the big debate. It's all supply and demand, just like anything else. But it's volatile, changes fast. And there's still a lot of questions about how governments will regulate it, how it'll fit into the global financial system.
This is blowing my mind. It's like a whole new world of money. But before we go too deep into crypto, we've covered a lot. Gold standard, central banks, blockchain. What stands out to you as the biggest change in all this?
That's a tough one. But I think moving away from the gold standard to fiat money, that was huge. It changed how we think about value, about trust in the system. That trust used to be in something real, like gold. Now it's more about the government, about whether the whole economic system is stable.
It's crazy, right? It's like money has come full circle.
Yeah.
Started with bartering, direct trust between people. Then we had those physical forms, livestock, grain, gold. Now with digital currencies, it's almost back to that direct trust, but with technology and code instead.
That's a really interesting point. It shows how much we need systems we can trust, whether it's something you can hold, a government, or a complicated algorithm. And speaking of digital systems, there's another part of this we haven't even gotten to yet, digital wallets, and something called CBDCs. But maybe we should save that for next time, before your head explodes.
Haha, good idea. I need a minute to process all this. Yeah, let's save those for the grand finale. This is getting more and more interesting.
Get ready, because the future of money is just getting started.
Okay, so we've come a long way, huh?
Mhm.
From trading goats to, well, Bitcoin. It's amazing how money has changed. Always adapting, you know?
And it's still changing. Last time we started talking about digital wallets and those CBDCs. I want to dig into those a bit more.
For sure. I'm especially curious about those CDCs, the central bank digital currencies. They sound kind of like a mix of regular money and crypto, right? Yeah,
They got it.
Yeah.
Like a hybrid, yeah. Basically, they're the digital version of a country's money issued by the central bank, like the
Right.
cash in your wallet, but digital.
So instead of bills and coins, it's all on our phones or computers. I guess that's where those digital wallets come in.
Exactly. Digital wallets are like apps, platforms that let you store and use digital currencies. You probably use them already for things like Apple Pay or Google Pay. Same idea.
So are governments all over this CBDC thing? What's the appeal? And are there any downsides?
It's a hot topic, that's for sure. Big economies like China, the EU, the US, they're all looking into it. Some people say CBDCs can make things more efficient, cheaper, easier for people who don't have bank accounts. And they might help fight crime, like money laundering.
Sounds good so far. But doesn't it give governments even more control over our money? Especially if it's all digital. That makes me a little uneasy, honestly.
Yeah, I get that. It's a valid concern. Some folks worry about privacy, about governments tracking everything we do, and there's always the risk of hacking or glitches that could mess up the whole system. Plus, how would this affect banks? Would it make the whole financial system less stable? Lots of questions.
It's like we're entering a whole new world with all this digital money stuff. What do you think? Are CBDCs inevitable? Or are there other possibilities out there?
Tough to say. The future of money is being written right now, and there are a lot of factors. CBDCs are a big one for sure. But so is crypto and those decentralized finance platforms. We might not even be able to imagine what else is coming. What's clear is that the way we exchange value is changing, and that's exciting to watch.
It's wild, isn't it? We went from bartering chickens to maybe living in a world where money is just code.
It shows how money, at its core, is really about trust. We used to trust in things we could hold, gold, silver. Then it was governments. Now it might be algorithms, technology. It's a big shift in how we see and use value.
This deep dive has been incredible. We've covered so much, from those early days of bartering to the most cutting-edge stuff. I feel like I get it now, not just how money works, but how it reflects us as a society, our needs, our technology, what we value.
Me too. It's a reminder that the story of money never ends. Who knows what's next?
Before we wrap up, one last thought for you and for our listeners. Thinking about everything we've talked about, from bartering to Bitcoin, what's the biggest takeaway? What's the most important thing to learn from the history of money?
That's a great question. For me, it's that money is more than just a tool for buying and selling. It reflects our values, our creativity, the trust we have in each other, and the systems we build. Knowing how money has changed helps us understand how those values and systems have shaped our world and how they'll continue to shape our future.
Well said. This has been a fascinating conversation. Thanks for joining me. And to everyone listening, thanks for coming along on this deep dive into the world of money. Until next time, keep exploring, keep those minds curious,